And the main event, the Dominic Smyth Electric Senior Football Championship Final, takes place at 1:30 here in Chadwick's Wexford Park on Sunday. It's between the Starlights and Castletown, both teams who have a great tradition of winning senior football titles, both going back a long way and in recent years. So it promises to be a very close game. But before we discuss this coming game itself, I don't think we can start the discussion without mentioning the two great semi-finals that we had here last weekend. Colm, how would you sum up the two semi-finals that we had here?
Well, absolutely marvellous is the only way I could. The two of them, there were two totally different games though. The first game, it was one of those games that it was half time. Where did that half an hour go? You know, and the Martins game had absolutely everything. Martins and Castletown, it was as clean a game as you'd ever see. It had scores, it had frees from unbelievable angles, it had goals, it had missed chances, it had everything you want as an advertisement for senior football in Wexford. You know, and Castletown, Robbie Brooks driving down there, you know, it was just drama all over the place. You know, Ben robbing those few yards to make the free easier at the end, but he probably would have put it over from where it was anyway. He was on fire. And it just had everything you need in a senior football match. I really enjoyed it, really enjoyed covering it, and I think anyone who's looking at it, whether here or home, were just drained from looking at it. It's a pity it didn't go to extra time. But like if you look at the four teams, 1 point separated them after 120 minutes of football. We could be talking about St. Martin's against Shelmaleer's final here just the same. That's how small the margins were. The second game was a war of attrition. You know, it was two really well drilled, well coached teams. Starlights took over at the start of extra time. You know, Ricky Fox, it was the Ricky Fox show from there on in, and they just had that little bit extra will, I suppose, or a little bit extra luck, whatever we want to put it. You need all those things to win, but two absolutely fantastic games of football. And I'm sure Shane Roach, looking at him, was smiling from ear to ear, saying, I need to get some of these guys into my panel.
Brian, I'm sure you enjoyed them as well. What were your thoughts on them?
Yeah, just simple enough. Two brilliant games. Exactly what Wexford football needed. You know, you need club matches like that, and you know, for someone like Shane Roach, there after stepping up to the plate with Galvin stepping down, it's great for him to see to see that many players playing well. I think Castletown will probably be a little bit concerned that they were 3-9 to 1-9 up, I think, at the last water break, and they gave up the lead, but as Colm said, Ben scored a great free and they got over the line. And it's like what Colm said, I mean, we could easily be talking about St. Martin's and the Shells in the final. I mean, the Shells were the wit of the woodwork down there from winning it with the last play of the game, you know. And then, you know, a couple of minutes into extra time,
the game was
the
over.
Starlights have 1-1. Ricky Fox goes inside and scores 1-1, and then comes back out and starts getting on the ball out the field. But it took a while. It was a slow burner, the second one, you know. But when it got going, it was brilliant. It was just intriguing. It was a brilliant game, and you know, like Liam Ryan, he didn't actually seem to be in the game that much, and he ended up scoring 2-2. You know, he just appears and at the right time, and he's just a big, strong runner, but he can play football as well. But as regards to semi-finals, I don't think, you know, we'll see two better semi-finals here for a long time. They were absolutely brilliant games.
And David Ladd said we could easily have St. Martin's and the Shells in the final. When the Shelmaleers played Castletown, there was only a point in it as well, and when St. Martin's played the Starlights, there was only 2 points in it. So the four teams have proven that there's really a thing of nothing between any of the four of them, really.
Yeah, and we sort of touched on maybe probably the four best teams that maybe reached the semi-final last week. I know Colm won't be happy with that, but like, I mean, for the two games they produced, we couldn't have asked for more. The first game, like, I mean, I'm not going to go over, the lads have covered most of it, but it was an epic. And I mean, I stood here last week and questioned the Martins, in fairness, whether they'd be able to put back-to-back performances together, but the Martins played their part in an absolute epic thriller. I mean, the performance of, you know, just Rory O'Connor stands out to me, Kieran Ling, young Luke Kavanagh, only out of minor. Like, the Martins have a serious future insofar as, and I expect they'll be winning a senior football title if this split season continues over the next few years, because the talent there, and they were so unlucky at the end. I mean, to come from 6 points down at the last water break to get level, and there looked like there was only going to be one team to win it at the end. I mean, a fantastic game, but again, Castletown showed why they're champions to come out, and I mean, down a pitch side on Sunday, the physical hits out there, the intensity, and as Colm said, all clean. The conditioning of the players, I have to give a shout out to Colm Morris too, how he's able to do that at 40 plus, like in the centre of the fence, and look comfortable out there was fantastic. And then the second semi-final has been covered. I mean, it was a slow start. First quarter was actually quite poor. I mean, Owen Nolan missed a penalty. You know, you never know, that might have kicked the shells on. But I mean, as the game went on and into extra time, it was like unbelievable stuff from the Starlights. A fantastic performance, yeah. And I did say on Twitter on Sunday night about a gallant Shell side winning the hurling and coming so close to a football final. All credit to them too.
There was one question answered for me over the course. Like, people say that the Martins or whatever don't care about football down there. When you see the bodies lying on the field after that game, after giving absolutely everything, same as the Shells after the game, after giving absolutely everything, you only have that whenever you have given absolutely everything. And you know that you've given everything you have. Well, it just wasn't your day. I mean, Daithí Waters came on for 15 minutes, made a massive influence on the game. He could barely walk out of the park here, you know. So all the four teams really wanted to get into a senior football final, and I have to say credit to the four panellists, the four sets of managers, for delivering that feast of football for us here last weekend.
Well, from 4 we went down to 2, and obviously we have the Starlights now in Castletown. I think the first major talking point, Colm, is the 4 guys that are going to be in the middle of the field: Coleman, Heffernan, Doyle and Ryan.
Yeah, that's certainly going to be a heavyweight battle, but they're only going to be as good as what the goalkeepers are. And, you know, we have 2 of the best, you know, delivering the ball out there for those. Like, the best way, I suppose, of getting possession is from a kick out. So the Starlights have been dominant in that area recently. I thought Liam Coleman started really well here last weekend. He did go over, which is natural because he's only coming back from injury. Rory Heffernan had a good game throughout. Never held onto the ball too long, was always moving it nice and quick and giving another option. But Pa Doyle and Anthony's kickouts, you know, their Pa's are like lasers, and Anthony's are just technically so good. You know, he's going to find that area of the field that's going to benefit the Castletown lads most. The Martins were dominating for a while, so he started putting them over the top of midfield. And then you had like a James Holmes picking him up and driving through the middle when all the, you know, Martins had pushed up a little bit. That bit of cuteness, you know, that pays off in the long run. And whatever way the goalkeepers are going to deliver the ball is going to have a massive part to play in winning that midfield battle. 2 very evenly matched midfields. Liam Ryan, you know, how do you stop him when he's coming at you full force? You try to shoulder him, he'd bounce off you, you know, and then he has the opportunity to give and go. He scored 2-2 here last week, create a goal the week before. You know, he's coming into it, and he's revolutionised this team now coming back from injury. He's given them all an extra little bit, an extra spark, and Nick Doyle is a perfect foil for him there, because I've never seen a man win as many high balls as what he done here last week, and never gives it away. So that's going to be a titanic battle, and it will have a massive bearing on the game.
And Brian, Liam Ryan, the lads mentioned him there, he's not the type of guy that's going to hit the top of the possession stakes. Like, he doesn't get as many touches of the ball, but when he gets it, he makes things happen when he gets it.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. I remember watching him, I don't know how many years ago. We played him in Ross, and he was in the middle of the field, and he was a young lad then anyway, and he scored 5 or 6 points from play that day from the middle of the field as well. So I mean, he just seems to appear at the right time. He's able to time his runs, and as Colm said, like, you know, if you stand in his way, he'll just bowl you over. You know, he has a side step as well, you know. But the Pa Doyle's kickouts here last week are as good as I've seen from any goalkeeper that's played a club match here in Wexford Park. They were like, they were just laser like, and it made it was actually the kick out that helped the Starlights to turn around the game, because they started dominating in the middle, you know. And look at the Castletown boys are strong there as well, and that is, you know, the whole game could hinge on that. It could actually hinge on the midfield battle. But I think that Ryan is the real X factor in this thing, you know. He just seems to deliver time and time again, you know, and it's going to be, look, it's going to be a brilliant battle to watch how it unfolds here on Sunday.
You mentioned it. You mentioned his sidestep. Liam Ryan's. His angles of runs are just incredible. Watching him the last 2 games, I mean, he's switched off. He's so hard to mark, and then he's gone boom. And he does such good angles that it's nearly impossible to defend. That second goal of his in extra time on Sunday was as good a goal as we'll see in the park.
But he ran 80 metres for the first one.
Yeah, he should have fisted it over the back. Sorry, Colm.
He ran 80 metres for the first one. He saw there was no one home. And I think Dylan McVeigh got the ball on the win. He was screaming for the far side, and as soon as he got it, there was no one home, and there was only going to be one result. But you know, that's the willingness he brings to that Starlights midfield. That he just wants to bomb forward all the time, and like you said, that sidestep, you know, it's a very good move for him.
We were actually pitch side, Colm, and we were watching the first goal kind of unfold, and for a second, the only option was on the left, and the next thing, as Colm said, Liam Ryan just appeared from the other side, and you know, it was a well-timed pass, but it was a brilliant finish as well. Yeah, but he just sort of ghosted into that position. You know?
Peter, just going back to that midfield battle and the kickouts. I mean, like Pat Doyle agreed, his kickouts are excellent, and I mean Nick Doyle as a primary possession winner is second to none out there at the moment, right? But I mean, I think, you know, Timmy Walsh up in Castletown, they'll be working on that all week. I expect they'll flood that area there around Nick Doyle, around Liam Ryan, and get the ball to ground, and then look to win the breaking ball. Whereas on the flip side of it, despite Liam Coleman and Rory Heffernan being 2 top-class midfielders, I don't expect Anthony to be in the middle of the field at all. I mean, they have a super system worked out whereby they're gathering in the middle and breaking to the wings, and Anthony's popping it into that little pocket there. Now, how the Starlights counteract that will be interesting as well, but I mean, I'd say there'll be 2 contrasting kick-out.
They did that now last year against us. You know, that stack formation and then break to the wings. The only thing you can do is push up your wing backs. And or else play from the inside or the outside edge when you are in the stack. But Anthony has the ability then to go over the wing back, you know, and when you put any of those Castletown forwards in space, you're in trouble, you know, because you're flooding that midfield. It's going to be a difficult 1-2 breakdown, but I'm sure Anto is going to be working on that all week. Yeah.
And David, you're the centre back of the panel here. Assess the 2 backlines.
Yeah, I mean, look at Starlights. When you talk about backlines and we start with the Starlights, I don't think we can talk about just the 6 together, because they have such a good system set up that when they lose the ball, they're getting 12 or 13 men back, and they're not just coming back and filling space. They're structured in or around the D, back behind the 45. The man markers, Rory O'Connor, Ben Edwards and them are picking their men, and then it's so hard to penetrate. So I mean, we saw the Shells got a minor joy going through, running off the shoulder, drawing a few frees, but Starlights defensively are setting up really well. I mean, we've said a few times Ricky Fox wears number 6, but he's nowhere near that. He plays further up the field. But again, when the Starlights lose the ball, I've been really impressed how they set up defensively. On the other side of things, Castletown, like, they have their man markers there, the Danny Gardners. Frank Roach came out and picked Linger from the start on Sunday, but which allows Colm to sit off around the edge of the D and cut out a lot of ball coming in. So you've got 2 really well-oiled, well-organised defences. But again, unlike possibly what we talked about in the intermediate match, they break so quickly when they turn you over, and they keep men up the field. So Castletown will be looking to the likes, you know, if they turn you over, they'll be looking to the likes of James Holmes or a Jody Shaughnessy to take the ball off you and travel. But defensively wise, I suppose the 2 key points I look at it is Colm as an organiser and not particularly a man marker, sitting on the edge of the D. And then on the opposite side of things, you've got, if you don't move the ball fast against Starlights, and I mean really fast, you let them set up defensively where they get 12, 13 men behind the ball, well organised, plenty of talking between them. You can see how organised they are, and it's very difficult to get scores. And
Brian, in attack then, we have 2 sides here with both with plenty of players well able to take scores.
Yeah, they're two real strong forward lines, and you know, like Jonathan Beale and Ben Brosnan, I mean, you know, two as good as you get. Like Ben just keeps doing it year in, year out, you know. He scored 2-5 here last weekend, one you know, the 1-4 was place balls or whatever, but still you have to finish them chances as well. You have to score your frees. The Starlights for me had different options. They had, you know, Nick Dial went in for a while, you know, and he caused trouble when he went in. They probably just put him in there to give him a break out the middle of the field for a while. You saw Ricky going in there at the start of extra time and scoring 1-1. You know, they seem to be able to vary, and they just seem to have players who can slot into any position. The only time I felt that, and I know David touched on it early in the game when the Shells got the penalty, I think that's the only real time they broke the line. You know, that's what Castletown are going to need to do. They're going to need to do things quick, because the Starlights will get back. And it's not a defensive setup or anything. It's just getting bodies behind the ball and then trying to break themselves quickly. You
wouldn't describe it as a really ultra defensive setup. It's more of a just very hard working setup, really.
Exactly. It's a hard working setup, and it is hard work, you know. But they're all willing. They're all willing to do it, you know. And it's difficult to separate the teams, you know. And probably one concern I have for Castletown is they only used 2 subs last weekend. Now, I don't know if they have a couple of injuries or if they have no more options off the bench. Usually when you get to a county final, you're going to need 20 guys that can, you know, that are up to it, and that you're going to need 5 guys on the line that can come in, you know, and a lot of times in a county final, it's people coming off the line that can have an influence on games.
And that just leads me on nicely to what I was going to ask you, Colm. Like, the bench often wins a game or kicks on in the last few minutes, and we saw that particularly in extra time the last day when the Starlight seeded men. There was plenty of the subs came in. I know James Carty had to go off injured. I think Dale Donoghue got a point. Few lads that wouldn't necessarily be thinking we're going to be match winners really helped pull the thing out of fire for the Starlights.
I spoke to James after the match, and he's reveling in his role as a kind of an impact sub. I don't think the injury's too serious, but he's made serious impact now in both last 2 games when he's came on, as has Hopper Kenny, you know, and they've made serious impacts off the bench, and you know, even when they went down to the 4th, 5th sub last week, it didn't weaken them because of the system they play. You know, everyone knows what everyone else's job, and that's one thing that strikes me about the Starlight setup is it's a unit. It's and it's clicked and it's working together, and everyone has realised that. And it doesn't matter where you're playing, you know what job you have. So you know, and Castletown, maybe they just felt that you know, in the areas that they had subs, that you know the guys were still okay and going well. Although in the last 15 minutes they scored 1 point from, you know, in that last quarter. So, you know, Martins were really on top at that stage. So, you know, that is an interesting point and something that maybe have a massive impact on this game. Anto doesn't mind emptying the bench. You know, he doesn't mind sending on subs. He normally gets 5 on every game, and you know, there are normally 5 good lads that he's bringing on.
So while the camera is still on you then, Colm, I think we'll wrap up and we'll get your prediction as to who is going to win the 2020 Senior Football Championship.
It's really hard to call now. I'm not going to sit on the fence or in that way. It's really hard to call. Castletown haven't lost a senior football match in over a year, you know, and that deserves massive respect. I just have a feeling that Starlights, there's something about them this year as regard hunger wise. I know there's always a hunger to go back to back, but I think with what they've discovered and the way they play for each other, and I know a lot of those Enniscorthy lads and they've won titles at the top grades down through the years in a lot of sports, and when they have the sniff of a title, they normally, you know, see the job through. So I'm going to go for the Starlights this week, and I think that could be 2 or 3 points in it.
Ryan?
Yeah, like what Colm said, you know, it's very hard to, you know, it's very hard to separate the teams, and Castletown, you know, to get to a final the year after winning is a very, very difficult thing to do. It's, you know, it's very hard to keep the foot on the pedal. It's very hard to keep fellas fresh. You know, they have a lot of experience, and they have a lot of older guys who are obviously, you know, keeping the thing going, you know, and it's a credit to them, and it's a credit to the club. For me, I'm going to agree with Colm. I think the Starlights will have the legs. I think they might have a bit more from the bench. I think they could win. I think they could win it by 4 or 5 points.
David?
Yeah, like I mean, I've covered, I've commentated on the last 2 Starlights games, quarter-final and semi-final, and what's been noticeable is the first quarter has been exceptionally slow starting from the Starlights. I think if they start slowly again this weekend, I think Castletown will punish them, pretty much like the Jameses punished them, but probably ran out of steam in the quarter-final. Again, Starlights wise, I don't think they have the all-round forward power that Castletown have. I was walking out of the park the other day and one of the Castletown Starlights, one of the Starlights selectors shouted, "Don't be tipping us this weekend again," but I won't be. I mean, Castletown for me, I think they're like last weekend's semi-final was very high on quality between Castletown and the Martins. Against a very good Martins team, the second and third quarters was as good of club football as I've seen from Castletown from anyone in a long time in Wexford football. I go back. I think the Starlights at full time last week had only 1-8 on the board. I don't think that's going to be enough. Castletown are well organised. I said like a well-oiled machine. They're reigning champions, and we said about being a great team to win 2 in a row. I think they have the bit between their teeth, and I'd be going for Castletown by 2 or 3 this weekend.
And I'm going to make it 3-1. I think I'll go with the Starlights. I think they're the best team in Wexford when they do things very, very quickly and at high intensity. I do think it'll be a tight game, but I think the Starlights might just win it.